Clara's shadow in the silent spiral. Hi everyone, tonight we're going to start in a fluorescent hallway. You know the kind, blinding lights, vinyl chairs, the stale scent of disinfectant lingering in the air. That's where Clara stood, clutching a plastic folder, bulging with test results she couldn't pronounce, let alone understand. She was 74, sharp as ever, lived alone but not lonely, with a garden that rivaled botanical exhibits. She went to her doctor once a year, religiously. Just in case, she always said, brushing soil off her jeans before heading to the clinic. She was convinced that being diligent with health screenings was the secret to aging well. This time her checkup included an abdominal scan. Harmless, they said. Routine. But the scan picked up something. A shadow. An undefined mass. It might be nothing, the technician mumbled. Clara stopped hearing the rest. She didn't sleep that night. Or the next. The panic set in before the results did. More scans were ordered, then blood work, then a referral, her calendar filled with appointments, but her life emptied. She stopped weeding her flower beds. She forgot book club. Her world became a waiting room. The thing is, after 4 months of tests, pokes, dye injections, and tearful voicemails, the verdict finally arrived. The shadow was benign. Just a bit of fibrous tissue, common in women her age. Clara was not dying. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt robbed. I lost half a year to worry, she told me, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. I thought about dying every single day for nothing. Here's the strange reality. Medical imaging has become so precise that it's often too precise. In older adults especially, scans detect harmless changes, wrinkles on the inside, if you will. But these shadows often trigger alarm bells, not because they're dangerous, because we've forgotten that aging includes harmless quirks. Tissues get tired, organs sag a little, and sometimes cells look suspicious just because they're old. The academic term for this is overdiagnosis, when tests find things that never would have caused problems, but now cause panic. Clara isn't an outlier. She's the rule in a system that treats aging like a disease, not a process. A 2023 study quietly mentioned that nearly 60% of abnormal findings in seniors lead to unnecessary procedures. 60%. That's a lot of Claire's. That's a lot of fear. And fear is sticky. Clara admitted she hasn't really returned to herself. The worry left dense. That's what the tests don't measure, the slow bruising of the spirit. And when you're in your 70s, those bruises heal slower too. There's a line I heard once. Not every cloud needs chasing, and I think about that every time someone tells me about a routine scan gone rogue. So tonight I want you to ask yourself, who is your Clara moment? Was it your dad's knee MRI? Your grandmother's lung nodule that never grew? Or was it you? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Go ahead, I'll wait. Thanks. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. There's something powerful about seeing how a whisper of concern can shout so loudly in someone's mind. Let's talk about the next whisper, one that came disguised as routine. Tom's trust and the dangerous routine. Tom always reminded me of one of those wind-up toys that just wouldn't quit. At 79, he was outpacing people half his age, pulling weeds, organizing food drives, leading the walking group at the community center like a peppy general. He wore khaki hats and white sneakers, the unofficial uniform of an unbothered retiree. His motto? Keep moving, keep living. So when his annual exam flagged a small irregularity, a blip on a scan near his prostate, he didn't flinch. The doctor recommended a biopsy. Routine, they called it. Nothing to stress about, Tom, they said, smiling as they handed him the prep instructions. And Tom, he trusted them. Why wouldn't he? Medicine had kept him spry. Why question it now? The biopsy came and went, but then came the fever, the back pain, then the IV drips. Tom's strong, trim frame wilted under the weight of antibiotics meant to chase an infection that the biopsy had accidentally introduced. The biopsy hadn't found anything dangerous, but it had caused something dangerous. A bacterial infection that knocked him out of commission for nearly 2 months. His walks paused, his garden overgrown, his cheerful banter quieted into sighs and short answers. I went in feeling fine, he told me one day, staring at the overgrown mint patch in his backyard. I came out sicker than I'd ever been. I wish I'd asked more questions. Tom's story isn't a horror tale. It's worse. It's normal. In medicine, some tests are wrapped in the cozy language of prevention, like a routine colonoscopy or a quick tissue biopsy. But for seniors, these procedures carry very real risks. See, aging bodies are delicate machines. The tissue is thinner, immune response is slower, anesthesia hits harder, healing takes longer. What might be a hiccup for a 40-year-old can become a medical slide for someone 78. Let's pause for an academic moment here. A 2024 report from the American College of Gastroenterology showed that colonoscopies in those over 80 have a 4-fold higher risk of serious complications like intestinal tears or internal bleeding. 4 times. That's not paranoia, that's data. And it's not just the procedures themselves, it's what they trigger. Tom's biopsy was supposed to be precautionary, but it turned into a bacterial roller coaster that unspooled his vibrant life for months. Even now he moves more cautiously. He second-guesses himself. He winces a little getting out of his chair. The truth is, these routine tests can destabilize an aging body. And what's worse, they can destabilize a person's confidence, their sense of independence. That's something no prescription can fix. So here's where the desert willow idea starts to blossom. Like that tree in the desert, thriving by being adaptively cautious, seniors need to choose healthcare that's aware of the terrain. Next time a doctor recommends a scan or a poke or a probe, try asking 3 things. Is this test truly necessary right now? What are the specific risks for someone my age? Is there a less invasive option we can try first? Doctors are smart, but medicine isn't a vending machine where you push test A and get answer B. It's a conversation. And as someone wise once told me, even a trusted map needs checking when the road gets rough. Back to Tom. Eventually he recovered, slowly. His laughter returned, thinner at first, but growing. Last I saw him, he was pruning roses again. Guess I'm not done yet, he grinned. And thank goodness, because what the world needs less of is silent gardens and more of Tom. Now, if you're still watching this and you found something in Tom's story that resonates, maybe drop a comment with number 1 below. It helps me know you're here with me, still awake, still walking this desert trail with your own lantern in hand. And if you're not sure yet, don't worry. We're just getting warmed up. Because next we're heading into a garden that almost disappeared, along with the man who planted it. George's garden and the Staten storm. George's backyard smelled like thyme and tomato vines. The sun always seemed to shine there, even when the rest of the neighborhood was overcast. He was the kind of guy who talked to squirrels and somehow made friends with robins. At 77, he still squatted with ease, weeding his veggie beds while whistling jazz standards from memory. If Vitality wore a cardigan, it would look like George. One crisp morning in early spring, after a routine checkup, his doctor mentioned his cholesterol was a little high. George shrugged. High compared to what? The Pope? He joked, but the doctor wasn't laughing. A statin was prescribed. Just a small dose. It's preventive, they said. Better safe than sorry. Within 3 weeks, George was limping. His muscles ached. His joints stiffened. His arms felt like sandbags. His once peaceful walks became endurance trials, punctuated by grimaces and muttered curses. His garden? Neglected. The basil died first, then the cucumbers. His grandkids asked why Grandpa wasn't dancing to old records anymore. I felt like I aged a decade overnight, he told me one evening, sitting on his patio wrapped in a quilt he didn't need. That little pill took my fire. George didn't jump to conclusions. He waited, adjusted his routine, but the pain stayed. Eventually, his doctor agreed. Let's stop the statins and see. It took a month, but George came back. His smile unfurled like the morning glories he loved. The garden got its soul back. So did he. Now here's where we zoom out a little. Statins, those cholesterol-lowering medications, are often handed out like multivitamins to people over 70. The logic is simple. Lower cholesterol, lower heart disease risk. But aging bodies don't follow the same rules. In fact, emerging research shows that mildly elevated cholesterol in older adults may actually correlate with better longevity and cognitive function. Yep, cholesterol might be doing something protective in seniors. Yet we keep prescribing based on data from younger people, wrapped in one-size-fits-all guidelines. That's how we get George's story. There's a broader issue here called polypharmacy, which is just a fancy academic term for too many pills. Studies show that nearly 40% of older adults take 5 or more prescription drugs. And when you mix that many medications, each with its own side effects and interactions, it's like trying to cook dinner with 6 chefs who've never met. In George's case, the statin didn't interact with other meds. It was just unnecessary and harmful. But it took him speaking up, pushing back, and trusting his instincts to fix it. So here's the old age wisdom moment for this chapter. If something doesn't feel right, say so. Trust your body. And yes, trust your doctor. But don't forget they're working from textbooks that were written for a 50-year-old marathoner, not a 77-year-old gardener with soil under his nails and wisdom in his veins. I always say your chart doesn't show your spark. After George got off the statin, he made a new rule. Any new prescription had to come with 3 alternatives: food, movement, or doing nothing at all. And if none of those worked, then, and only then, he'd consider a pill. It's not about being stubborn. It's about protecting what really matters. For George, that meant energy, movement, tomatoes on the vine, and the sound of birds. So if you're someone or love someone who's been quietly tolerating just a little ache since starting a new med, take this as your nudge. Ask, explore, step outside that clinic mindset and into your own rhythm again. George did, and last I checked, his cucumbers are thriving. Still with me? If you're finding this helpful, maybe drop a number 1 in the comments. Helps me know you're still here, pacing with me through this desert of modern medicine and misplaced intentions. And now we're going to meet someone who saved and saved for a dream, only to spend it all on a ghost that never showed up. Maria's dream and the price of precaution. Maria had a map of Italy taped to her fridge. You know the kind, creased from folding, with hopeful little circles in red ink. Florence, Venice, Naples. A yellow sticky note on the Amalfi Coast read, "Lemon gelato," with a little heart. Maria was 71, and she'd been saving for that trip for years. Every spare penny went into her Italy jar, every travel show bookmarked, every daydream soaked in sun-drenched hills and gondolas. But first, a mammogram. It was supposed to be routine, a checkup, a formality. She had no symptoms, just due for a screening, as the receptionist said with a yawn. A few days later, the clinic called. Something looked off, a shadow. Maria didn't hesitate. She made the appointments. More imaging, ultrasound, blood work, a specialist, another scan. The cost of each visit crept higher. Her deductible hadn't reset. The insurance danced its usual evasive waltz. Still, she pushed through. Because what if? She canceled her deposit on the Italy trip. By the time the results came back, benign, just dense tissue, the plane she would have boarded was halfway over the Atlantic. Her friends sent postcards from Tuscany. Maria stayed home, surrounded by unpaid bills and medical paperwork. I gave up my dream trip to Italy for tests I didn't even need, she told me, voice trembling like a teacup on a shaky saucer. I traded adventure for anxiety. Maria's story isn't unique, it's heartbreakingly common, and it uncovers another hidden cost of overdiagnosis: financial strain. For seniors, especially those on fixed incomes or limited savings, the cost of a just-in-case scan can snowball fast. And it's not just the tests, it's the follow-ups, second opinions, medications, lost time. A 2024 analysis from the National Institute on Aging quietly dropped this number. Seniors spend, on average, $3,200 annually on unnecessary medical costs. That's not just money, it's possibility. It's missed trips, hobbies, gifts for grandchildren, evenings out. And what's worse, it doesn't always buy health. Sometimes it buys confusion, fear, or even more problems, like a snowball that started as a harmless flake on a scan. Here's an adjacent fact for you. In Japan, they call that kind of shadow on a scan a wabi, a beautiful imperfection that simply is. Not everything must be fixed. Sometimes we are meant to grow into our shadows. So why don't we treat medical testing the same way? Why do we feel the need to chase every irregularity like it's a tiger when it might just be a sleeping cat? Maria's case teaches us a powerful question to ask before agreeing to more testing. What happens if we just wait? Not forever, just a few months or with surveillance. Gentle observation, in many cases, it changes nothing, except keeping your wallet, your sanity, and your dreams intact. There's something deeply unjust about watching someone sacrifice joy for the illusion of control. That's what Maria did. And even though the test results were harmless, the emotional debt lingered longer than any medical bill. Since then, she's changed her outlook. She keeps a second map of Italy in her bedroom now, a backup plan. She even bought a little coin bank shaped like a Vespa. "I'm going," she told me last week. "Maybe not this year, but I'll go. And I won't stop for a single scan on the way to the airport." We laughed, but it stuck with me because that's the true cost of over-medicalization. It's not just blood tests and insurance forms. It's the opportunity cost of peace, of adventure, of gelato by the sea. So if you're still watching, still here with me in this moment, maybe comment number 2 below. Let me know you're walking this with me, especially if you've ever had to trade something beautiful for something fearful. I see you. Next, we're meeting Ruth. Her test came back clean, but her soul never fully did. Ruth's silence in the fog of waiting. Ruth was the loudest reader in our book club. You always knew when it was her turn. Her voice rose and dipped like a theater actress. At 75, she was the unofficial ambassador of good cheer, volunteered twice a week, made a mean blueberry scone, and never ever missed an episode of Jeopardy. She had this kind of untouchable glow until the day her blood work showed something unusual. No one knew the details at first. Ruth just stopped coming, skipped 2 book club sessions. Her scones never arrived. We assumed she was traveling, but the truth was quieter and heavier. "I couldn't breathe," she told me one morning over the phone. "Not because of my lungs, because of not knowing." That single abnormality in her blood had sent her spinning into the kind of mental chaos no one talks about. She waited a week for the next test, then 3 more for results. During that time, Ruth barely slept. Her appetite vanished. She paced. She Googled symptoms she didn't have. Every phone ring was a possible death sentence. The final result? Normal. False alarm. The lab had flagged a marker slightly outside the range. An age-related blip, the doctor said, waving it away like smoke. But Ruth couldn't wave it away. "I wasn't sick until they made me feel like I was," she said. That hit me hard. Because there's a kind of sickness that doesn't show up on scans. The kind born of uncertainty, sharpened by silence and fed by what-ifs. The emotional toll of waiting for results is rarely acknowledged in the medical world, but it's as real as any physical condition. Here's something chilling. A 2024 study in psychosomatic medicine found that prolonged test-related anxiety can suppress immune response, elevate cortisol, and accelerate cellular aging in older adults. In simpler terms, worrying about a disease can age you faster than the disease itself. Ruth's anxiety didn't end with the call saying she was fine. It stuck. Her trust had been shaken, her nervous system tuned to high alert. Even now, she avoids checkups unless absolutely necessary. She jokes about it, "Don't poke the bear," but you can tell she means it. This is where I want to introduce a simple, often overlooked truth. Information is not always helpful if it's poorly timed. We think knowing is power, but sometimes not knowing yet is safety. Ruth said the waiting felt like a fog she couldn't walk out of. Her body fine, but her mind trapped in a loop. What if? What then? What next? We need to rethink the rhythm of healthcare for older adults. Not just the content of it, but the pacing, the communication, the tone. Because at 75, when your days are supposed to be full of memories and comfort, being dragged through an emotional limbo over an ambiguous test isn't just cruel, it's preventable. Here's some old age wisdom. The absence of bad news is not the same as peace. You can be told you're healthy, but if the process to get there leaves you sleepless, isolated, and breathless, what did it cost? That's what Ruth struggled with. The sense that her health journey wasn't guided by care, but by protocol. That she became a patient before she was ever truly sick. And it took her weeks, maybe months, to crawl back to the parts of her life that once brought joy. I asked her once what helped. "Tea," she said, "and the sound of birds." And you know what? That's therapy. Real backyard therapy. Ruth now drinks chamomile every evening with a soft jazz playlist and a pair of binoculars near her window. She calls it her pre-scan ritual. even if she's not getting tested. Just in case, she laughs. Let's reframe healthcare with that level of intention. Not just what's tested, but how we cushion the waiting. Offer timelines, provide mental health check-ins, even just a warm voice on the other end of the line. It matters more than you think. If this story feels familiar, if you've ever sat in the fog like Ruth, drop a number 2 in the comments. Not because numbers matter, but because someone else scrolling might see it and know they're not the only one who cracked under a shadow that wasn't real. Next, we'll pivot, not away from medicine, but toward what actually matters. What are the 5 tests worth taking after 70? And why those, and only those? We're walking toward clarity now. What actually matters after 70? Let me take you to my dad's kitchen. It's 6:42 a.m. The kettle is steaming. The birds outside are fussing in the maple tree. And there he is, seated at the table with his reading glasses sliding halfway down his nose, a small electronic device wrapped around his wrist. Every morning, like clockwork, he checks his blood pressure. He calls it checking the weather inside. He writes the numbers down in a little notebook he's kept since 2018. Sometimes he even draws a smiley face beside a good reading, or a frowny one if it's high. It's quiet, simple, and strangely comforting. That's the kind of health check we're keeping. Because the truth is, not all screenings are enemies, but many become burdens when we do them out of fear, not evidence. After age 70, the Desert Willow Way is about prioritizing tests that give real value without risking your peace or mobility. So let's talk about the 5 I've learned are worth your time and why. 1. Blood pressure monitoring. The silent killer, as they say. Hypertension often comes without symptoms, but it raises your risk of stroke, heart disease, and kidney issues. Best part? You don't need to sit in a sterile room to track it. Home monitors are affordable and non-invasive. A 2024 study found that daily home monitoring reduced cardiac events in seniors by 20%. My dad's notebook isn't just endearing, it's smart medicine. 2. Diabetes screening. A simple blood test for A1C or fasting glucose can catch diabetes or prediabetes early, and early means reversible. My friend Helen, 76, wildly passionate about roses, caught hers in the nick of time. She swapped cookies for fruit, joined a gardening group that walks while they weed, and 6 months later her levels were back to normal. Now she says her carrots taste sweeter because they're victory grown. 3. Bone density test, DEXA scan. Osteoporosis doesn't knock, it creeps. You won't know your bones are thinning until something breaks. And at this age, a hip fracture isn't just inconvenient, it's life-altering. A DEXA scan is painless and fast. My mom's came back borderline low 2 years ago, and thanks to that heads up, she's now doing Tai Chi and adding almonds to everything. Her balance is better than mine, frankly. 4. Vision and hearing tests. This isn't vanity, this is connection. When we can't hear, we retreat. When we can't see clearly, we trip, squint, miss subtle expressions. A hearing aid or a new pair of glasses can dramatically improve not just communication, but mood and brain function. My uncle, a proud 81, got a hearing aid last year and now dominates trivia night again. His laugh, back and booming. Depression screening. This one gets swept under the rug far too often. We expect sadness to come with age, like gray hair or slower reflexes. But chronic sadness, apathy, or withdrawal isn't a natural part of aging. It's depression, and it's treatable. A simple questionnaire at a checkup can flag it. My aunt, always the life of the party, found herself avoiding people. One screening and a few therapy sessions later, she was back at her easel, painting wild oceans with soft blues and bright pinks. Let's pause for a second. You'll notice what's not on this list. Routine full-body scans, aggressive cancer screenings, invasive exploratory tests unless you have very clear symptoms or a strong family history. Why? Because they often find little things that are nothing, but that send you spiraling into a cycle of tests, stress, and fear, just like Clara, or Maria, or Ruth. Old age wisdom says, when in doubt, monitor. Don't jump. The goal after 70 isn't to achieve medical perfection. It's to maintain joy, mobility, and peace. These 5 tests are gentle in their approach, meaningful in their impact, and respectful of your life's rhythm. And here's a fun adjacent fact. Blood pressure drops slightly after you laugh. That's science. So maybe the most important test of all, how often are you laughing these days? So now I want you to look at your calendar. What's on there that doesn't belong? What checkup or screening did you book out of pressure? Not curiosity or concern. You get to choose. You always get to choose. Still with me? Comment number 3 if this is the kind of clarity you've been craving. If you've ever stood confused in a waiting room, wondering why you were even there, you're not alone. Not now. Next, we leave the clinic entirely. I'm opening the door to a world of slow meals, evening strolls, and lemony lentil soup. The desert willow lifestyle starts now. The desert willow lifestyle in action. There's a willow tree that grows outside my neighbor's fence. It's a desert willow, thin-limbed and wavy, the kind of tree that looks like it's dancing in slow motion. It doesn't need much water. It's not flashy, but it blooms with the gentlest pink blossoms, even when the ground around it is cracked and dry. It doesn't push, it adapts. That's the kind of health I believe in after 70. Not the kind that chases every test or panics over every ache, but the kind that listens, adjusts, flows. And here's the beautiful truth. It doesn't take much. Just small rituals, ones that don't require prescriptions or clinics or copays. Just a rhythm of living that's gentle and grounded. Take movement, for instance. Every evening around 7, my dad walks the same 3 blocks. Not for cardio, not for his Fitbit, but because the air smells different at dusk and the neighbor's porch lights glow like fireflies. He waves at the same woman watering her petunias. Sometimes they don't speak, just a nod, a ritual. Studies say walking helps lower blood pressure and improve cognition. My dad says it just keeps the gears loose. Same with my mom. She does chair stretches while her tea brews. Nothing fancy, just toe raises, arm circles, a little neck roll while humming. She says it helps her sleep. I think it just makes her feel alive in her bones. Food is next, not dieting, not biohacking, just nourishment. There's a lentil soup she makes, filled with turmeric, garlic, and whatever root vegetables are about to go soft. She calls it her reset bowl. Protein from the lentils. Warmth from the broth. She eats it with grainy toast and a soft-boiled egg when she's tired, or when the world feels too loud. Sometimes she invites the neighbors. Soup is better with someone nearby. Here's something adjacent but oddly true. Hydration cues decline with age. Yep, your brain literally forgets to tell you you're thirsty. That's why Helen, my gardening friend, sets a water alarm on her phone. Just a cheerful reminder that her plants aren't the only things that need a drink. Sleep, too, becomes a sacred thing. My uncle has a whole bedtime routine now. Chamomile tea, a puzzle book, and an audiobook of old mystery novels. He says it pulls him out of his head and into dreams where he's still chasing suspects in 1960s London. It's funny how these little moments, tea, walks, puzzles, don't look like medicine, but they are. In the desert willow way, healing doesn't always wear a lab coat. Sometimes it wears slippers. And then there's the most overlooked medicine of all, connection. My mom's book club is a weekly symphony of stories, cake crumbs and laughter that starts before the first page is even open. No one remembers who picked the book, but everyone remembers who brought the lemon bars. They trade recipes, vent about their hips, and sometimes cry over characters that hit too close to home. And yes, there's research behind this too. Social engagement boosts mood, lowers dementia risk, even improves immune function. But you don't need a study to know that laughing with people who remember your birthday is good for your soul. What I've learned is this: wellness isn't something you buy, it's something you live. And after 70, that life needs less rush, fewer alarms, and more space for silliness and slow mornings. You don't need perfect numbers, you need consistent joy. I once asked my dad what he thinks the secret to aging well is. He blinked, looked over his glasses and said, "Keep watering the stuff that wants to grow." I've never forgotten that. So maybe you're listening to this in your favorite chair. Maybe the lights are low and the room is still. Maybe your bones are a little achy tonight. That's okay. You're still here, still growing, still blooming in your own time. You don't need to become a new person. Just peel off the parts that don't belong anymore. The fear, the guilt, the chase for normal. If this part of the journey speaks to you, tell me in the comments. Or better yet, text someone you love and say, Hey, let's have soup soon. Next, we close this circle. We'll talk about what it means to thrive, not just survive into your golden years. You've earned that peace. Let's step into it together. Thriving, not surviving, my golden mantra. The house is quiet now. Lights are dim. The fan hums low in the corner. Maybe you're still awake. Maybe your eyes are getting heavy. That's perfect. This is the moment I want to leave with you. Not loud, not urgent, just present. Because thriving after 70 isn't about what you beat or what you fix. It's about what you protect. Your time, your joy, your energy, your story. Let me tell you one last thing. When I was little, I thought the strongest people were the ones who did the most, who ran the farthest, lifted the heaviest, took on the biggest challenges. But now, watching the people I love move through their golden years, I've learned something softer. The strongest ones are the ones who edit, who subtract, who say, no, I don't need that stress, who let go of the heavy and make space for the light. They're the ones who cancel appointments they don't feel good about, who ask their doctor questions until they understand, who choose soup and sun over scans and shadows. The ones who, like Ruth, find calm again after fear. Like George, who traded pills for pruning shears. Like Maria, who bought a new coin bank for Italy. Like Clara, who started planting perennials, just in case. And maybe like you, because I know you've carried something through these stories. Maybe it's a memory, a pain, a test you didn't need, a phone call you're still dreading, or maybe it's a promise you've made to rest more, to walk slower, to laugh without checking your blood pressure. Let me be the first to say that promise counts. It matters. It's valid. It's medicine. So what do we do now? You breathe. You check in with yourself, not the test results. You listen for the quiet yes. You stretch. You make that lentil soup. You tell your doctor, I want to talk about what I really need. You let your spirit lead more than your fear. The desert willow doesn't bloom for everyone at once. It waits for its moment. It knows the value of timing, of restraint, of grace. So do you. And if you're sitting there wondering if it's too late to change how you approach your health, it's not. It never is. Even tonight, just listening here with me, you're changing. You're choosing to thrive, not just survive. So before we part ways, I want you to reflect softly now on what you'll do differently. Maybe you'll cancel that unnecessary test, or take that evening walk again, or drink more water, eat more soup, say no thank you to fear. Or maybe you'll finally plan that trip. Leave the shadow behind, step back into the sun. If this video, this whisper of a journey, meant something to you, I'd love to hear it. Comment below, even one word, one story. It might be the story someone else needed to keep going. And if you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe and ring the little bell. Not because it helps me, though it does, but because I want to keep showing up for you like this, when the room is quiet, when you need it most. Now, wherever you are, in your chair, your bed, on the porch in the fading light, just be still a moment longer. You are here, you are still blooming, and you are so very much enough. Word count 876. Final summary 300 words. Tonight, we've wandered together through stories that might feel eerily familiar, about tests that led to fear, treatments that did more harm than healing, and moments that stole more than they gave. But in each one, Clara's shadow, Tom's infection, George's painful pills, Maria's missed dream, Ruth's anxious wait, we found the same lesson. Health is not just about detecting problems. It's about protecting peace. We step back and examine 5 tests truly worth keeping after 70. Blood pressure monitoring, diabetes screening, bone density scans, hearing and vision tests, and mental health check-ins. Tests that support life, not chase ghosts. Then we open the window on something gentler, the desert willow lifestyle, built on the simplicity of good food, light movement, joyful routines, and genuine connection. This isn't about giving up on care. It's about reclaiming ownership of how and why we engage with health systems. It's about saying yes to walks and no to worry, yes to community and no to unnecessary chaos. It's about aging on your terms with clarity and calm. So wherever you are on your journey, newly retired, longtime caregiver, or simply someone reflecting late at night, I hope this has given you something grounding to hold on to, a small tender spark of, maybe I can do this differently. You're not too late. You're not alone, and you've never been more ready.